one of the most unforgettable faces of British cinema, who rose to stardom during London's golden era of the 1960s and later etched himself into millions of minds by portraying one of the most iconic villains in the Superman films. Terence Stamp. We will no longer see him among us. At the age of 87, Stamp has passed away. His story was not only the career of an actor, but also the story of Britain's cultural transformation, the ups and downs of Hollywood, and the inner struggles of an artist. Today, we will take a closer look at the lines between this extraordinary journey. We will touch upon not only the moments he lived on the big screen, but also the dramatic moments of his real life. Perhaps the real question to ask is this: how can an actor represent the spirit of an era so powerfully? Yes, for most viewers, Stamp's name is first and foremost remembered as Superman's merciless enemy, General Zod, in the massive 1978 production and its sequel. With those cold stares that radiated from his eyes, he engraved himself into memories of audiences. Yet this was only a part of his journey, because Stamp was, in fact, a star born right in the heart of swinging London, the period of the 1960s when Britain exploded with art, fashion, and music. During those years, he was linked with dazzling women of the era, from Christie to Brigitte Bardot, and seen alongside icons like Jean Shrimpton. But notice, behind all that glitter, there was always an inner conflict. Stamp's story begins in East London, in a modest home. His father was a seaman, a man who worked under harsh conditions his entire life, and who saw his son's pursuit of acting and the stage almost as a disappointment. That's why, in his childhood, Stamp always felt a hidden support from his mother, but a constant distance from his father. He admitted this years later in an interview. "My father was never a man who showed his feelings. Such things were not expected from us," he said. And that distance remained as a shadow in his character. So how did that shadow turn him into a star? When he appeared for the first time on the world stage in Peter Ustinov's 1962 film Billy Budd. The cinema world witnessed the raw energy of a young actor. His performance was so impressive that he was even nominated for an Oscar. Achieving such success in his very first film was both a great blessing and a curse for him, because from that point on, everyone expected extraordinary performances. What stands out in Stamp's story is this: he never fully surrendered to Hollywood's glittering system. At times, he disappeared, withdrew, distanced himself from the stage. But then he returned again, creating immortal characters like General Zod in Superman. In other words, every period of his career was filled with rises and falls. And in this video, we will go behind the scenes of those rises and falls. But before we begin, a small reminder. If you're curious about such deep life stories and the behind the scenes of the cinema world, you can subscribe to the channel and like the video. That way, in future episodes, we can continue exploring together not only the stories of great actors like Terence Stamp, but also the background of events that shaped film history. Now let's take a closer look at Stamp's journey from London to Hollywood. In the next section, we'll talk about how Stamp became an icon during the culture explosion of the 1960s, who crossed his path, and which films captured the spirit of that era. Terence Stamp's story was, in fact, not just the career steps of an actor, but a journey that told the spirit of an entire era. That boy born in East London, whose very stepping on stage was believed by his father as not for people like us, would one day appear on the world's greatest stages. And in doing so, he was never just an ordinary star. He always chose his own path, lived through his own ups and downs. When we look at his life, we realize this. Stamp was never just a figure who shined with success alone. He had periods when he disappeared, when he stepped away from sets, when he even admitted to doing terrible things because work wasn't going well. But it was precisely this honesty that set him apart, because he believed not in the artificial glitter of fame, but in the essence of acting itself. He became unforgettable with his role as General Zod in Superman. He later voiced Superman's father Jor-El in Smallville. In other words, throughout a lifetime, he carried the image of both the hero and the villain. Isn't that an irony granted to only a handful of actors? Another remarkable thing about Stamp was that he was never satisfied with the point of saying, "I've done enough." As he said in an interview with The Guardian, "I don't demand high fees to get out of bed in the morning. I just want to do the best I can." This statement sums up his entire career. He was a man who chased not money or fame, but the art itself. Of course, in the 1960s, he stood alongside the greatest stars of the era, from Brigitte Bardot to Christie, living at the very heart of fashion and art. But at the same time, he also experienced loneliness. His short marriage, his parting of ways with Michael Caine, his long disappearances. All of this reminds us of one truth. Even where the light shines brightest, there are shadows. Stamp was someone who knew how to live with those shadows. Looking back today, what Stamp left us is not only his films, but also a life lesson. The lesson of choosing your own path, of paying the price, of staying true to art despite ups and downs. Perhaps that is why his name will never be forgotten, because he left a mark not only on one era, but also in the memory of different generations. And now I ask you, what do you think made Terence Stamp immortal? Was it his ability to make a villain like General Zod unforgettable, or was it the way he turned his whole life, complete with his flaws, into a journey of art? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because in the next video, we'll once again talk about another figure who left a mark on film history. This time, I'll share a story with connections you'd never expect. Terence Stamp's journey has come to an end here, but the mark he left will continue to live on the cinema screen, on television, and in our memories. And perhaps most importantly, it will remind us of this. True artists outlive the characters they portray. See you in the next video.